Our journey starts way back in 100,000 BCE, where weapons were as simple as they come. Rocks and sticks were the go-to tools for early humans. Need to hunt? Rock. Need to defend yourself? Stick. Need to express your displeasure with your neighbor? You guessed it, rock and stick combo. It was a time when the only upgrade available was finding a slightly sharper rock. These early weapons were all about brute force. The bigger the rock, the bigger the bonk. And if you were really fancy, you'd sharpen a stick into a spear. That's right, Stone Age innovation at its finest. By 40,000 BCE, someone got tired of missing those woolly mammoths and invented the atlatl, a tool that lets you throw a spear farther and harder. Suddenly, hunting became a lot less in your face and more from a safe distance. It was like inventing the sniper rifle 40,000 years before it was cool. The atlatl was a game changer. You could hunt from afar without having to worry about becoming mammoth pancakes. Plus, it made you look like a boss in front of your tribe. The downside? Explaining to the group how this weird stick actually worked. Jump to 3300 BCE, and the Bronze Age has arrived, bringing with it the first metal weapons. Bronze swords weren't just weapons, they were status symbols. If you had a bronze sword, you were basically walking around with the ancient equivalent of a sports car. It was shiny, it was sharp, and it told everyone you were kind of a big deal. But it wasn't just about looking cool. Bronze swords were a massive upgrade from rocks and sticks. These babies could cut, stab, and slice with deadly efficiency. The downside? Bronze was soft, so your fancy sword needed regular touch-ups, kind of like those high-maintenance sports cars. By 1200 BCE, the Iron Age had arrived, and it was all about durability. Iron weapons were tougher and sharper than bronze, meaning they didn't need as much care. This was the age of empire builders, where having an iron sword meant you were ready to conquer, or at least pretend you were. Iron weapons were like the smartphones of their time. Everyone had to have one, and if you didn't, you were seriously behind the times. Empires were forged with iron, literally and figuratively, and the battlefield became a place where only the sharpest and strongest survived. Around 1000 BCE, the chariot made its grand entrance. This wasn't just a weapon, it was the ancient world's first war machine. Imagine combining a sports car, a tank, and a battering ram, and you've got a chariot. These things were fast, intimidating, and capable of turning a battle into a demolition derby. Chariots were the ultimate power move. If you showed up to a fight with one of these, everyone knew you meant business. In 490 BCE, the Persian immortals became the stuff of legend. These elite soldiers were armed with composite bows, capable of launching arrows with deadly precision. Imagine having an army of archers who could shoot arrows faster than you could say duck. That was the Persian immortals for you. Their bows were made from wood, horn, and sinew, giving them more power and range than regular bows. It's like going from a slingshot to a high-powered rifle in terms of ancient weaponry. The immortals were feared for a reason, mainly because they could turn the sky into a rain of death. In 480 BCE, the Greeks perfected the phalanx, a formation so tight it was like a wall of sharp, pointy death. Picture this, a row of soldiers, each holding a massive spear, standing so close together that even air couldn't get through. The phalanx was the ultimate defensive and offensive weapon, all rolled into one. The secret to the phalanx? Teamwork. If everyone did their part, it was unstoppable. If one guy sneezed and lost his grip though, things could get messy. But hey, when it worked like a charm. And by charm, I mean it skewered anyone who got too close. By 300 BCE, the Romans were on the rise, and their weapon of choice was the gladius, a short sword designed for stabbing, not slashing. The gladius was perfect for close-quarters combat, where space was tight and every move counted. It wasn't flashy, but it got the job done, kind of like the Romans themselves. The Romans built an empire with the gladius, and it became a symbol of Roman power. It was short, sharp, and to the point, literally. The gladius wasn't about showing off, it was about getting results. And get results it did, one stab at a time. In 52 BCE, Julius Caesar showed the world just how effective a good siege weapon could be. At the Siege of Wallachia, the Romans used the ballista, a giant crossbow on steroids. These bad boys could launch massive bolts or stones with terrifying accuracy, turning walls, soldiers, and basically anything in their path into Swiss cheese. The ballista was the sniper rifle of the ancient world, except instead of taking out a single target, it took out everything in a straight line. Caesar's use of these machines showed that sometimes brute force is the best strategy, especially when you have the biggest toys. By 1066 CE, the longbow had become the medieval equivalent of death from above. During the Norman conquest, at the Battle of Hastings, longbowmen rained down arrows like it was going out of style. These guys could shoot accurately from distances where most soldiers couldn't even see the enemy. The longbow was the king of ranged weapons in medieval Europe. It could pierce armor, it had an impressive range, and it was so feared that armies started training their archers from childhood, because becoming a medieval sniper took serious dedication. The 1300s weren't just about plagues, they were also about the crossbow. While the longbow required years of training, the crossbow was more of a point-click-win situation. It didn't take much skill to use, and that's what made it so deadly, and so popular. The crossbow was the great equalizer. It could punch through armor and had a decent range, making it the weapon of choice for anyone who wanted to be deadly without putting in the work. The downside? Reloading it was more like trying to reset a mousetrap. One wrong move, and you'd be in a world of pain. By the 1400s, gunpowder had made its explosive debut in Europe, and everything changed. Firearms and cannons started to replace bows and arrows, and suddenly, anyone could be a deadly marksman with just a little bit of powder and a match. Muskets were slow to reload and not super accurate, but they made armor about as useful as paper. And then there were the cannons, big, loud, and capable of turning walls into rubble. If you were defending a castle, cannons were your worst nightmare. If you were attacking, they were your new best friend. Gunpowder didn't just change warfare, it blew it up and started something completely new. The 1600s brought us the ultimate tag team combo, pike and shot. Musketeers provided the firepower, while pikemen kept the enemy at bay. It was teamwork at its finest, with the musketeers reloading while the pikemen handled the messy, close combat. Together, they were an unstoppable force, or at least a very well-coordinated one. This formation dominated European battlefields for over a century. The key was synchronization, like a deadly dance, but with way more stabbing and shooting. If everyone did their job, the formation held. If not, well, things got chaotic fast. By the 1800s, the rifle had taken over, bringing accuracy and power to the battlefield. Rifled barrels made bullets spin, increasing range and precision. And then there was the bayonet, a knife you could attach to the end of your rifle, turning every soldier into a part-time spearman. It was like getting a free bonus weapon with every rifle. The rifle and bayonet combo became a staple of 19th century warfare. Soldiers could shoot from a distance and then charge in for some up-close and personal action. It was the best of both worlds, if your idea of best involves a lot of stabbing and shooting. World War I introduced the world to the horrors of modern warfare, and the machine gun was at the center of it all. Capable of firing hundreds of rounds per minute, machine guns turned charging across open fields into a quick way to meet your maker. The result? Trench warfare, where soldiers spent most of their time hunkered down, trying not to get mowed down. The machine gun was the ultimate defensive weapon, making it nearly impossible for anyone to advance without taking massive casualties. It was a brutal, unforgiving war of attrition, where the machine gun ruled supreme, and trenches became the grim reality for millions of soldiers. World War II took warfare to a whole new level, with tanks, planes, and the atomic bomb changing the game forever. Tanks became the new kings of the battlefield, combining firepower, armor, and mobility into one terrifying package. Meanwhile, planes brought the fight to the skies, dropping bombs with devastating accuracy. But the real game changer was the atomic bomb, an invention so powerful it ended the war and started a whole new era of fear. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki showed the world just how destructive we could be when we put our minds to it. It wasn't just a weapon, it was a message. We can end everything, so let's try not to. The Cold War wasn't about battles. It was about the constant threat of battles that never happened. With nuclear weapons in play, the world lived under the shadow of mutually assured destruction, MAD. The idea was simple. If you nuke us, we'll nuke you back, and then we're all toast. It was the ultimate stalemate, where the only winning move was not to play. Missiles, submarines, and bombers became the new tools of power, all armed with nukes that could destroy the world many times over. It was a tense, dangerous time where the biggest weapons were never used. Thankfully, the Cold War was less about fighting and more about showing off who had the biggest stick. In the 21st century, warfare has gone high-tech. Drones now do much of the dirty work, flying over battlefields and striking targets with precision. They're the ultimate in remote control, just like playing a video game, but with real consequences. And then there's cyber warfare, where the only weapons are code and the stakes are just as high as any physical battle. Cyber warfare is the new frontier. Hackers can take down power grids, steal secrets, or even disrupt entire economies, all from behind a keyboard. It's a different kind of war, one that's fought in the shadows, where the only explosions are digital, but the damage is very real. From rocks and sticks to nukes and drones, the history of war is the history of humanity itself. Our fears, our ambitions, and our relentless drive to innovate. Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Thanks for coming along on this explosive journey through time. If you've got a favorite weapon from history, drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell before it becomes weaponized too.